You did everything right. You raised your children. You showed up to their events, paid for their education, sacrificed vacations and luxuries so they could have opportunities you never had. You were there for birthdays, graduations, weddings. You babysat grandchildren. You gave and gave and gave. And now your phone rarely rings. Visits have become obligatory. Brief appearances on holidays, awkward dinners where everyone watches the clock. Your children love you. You are certain of that. But they do not seek your company. They do not call to share news or ask your opinion. You have become someone to manage rather than someone to know, and you have no idea why. This is the loneliness that no one prepares you for. Not the loneliness of losing a spouse or outliving friends. Those losses are recognized, validated, discussed. This is the loneliness of being slowly, quietly erased from the lives of people who are still alive, still nearby, still technically in your life. There is a reason this happens, a specific, identifiable reason that explains why some seniors remain deeply connected to family, while others find themselves increasingly alone. And it is not what you think. It is not about how much you sacrificed. It is not about whether your children are selfish or ungrateful. It is not about busy schedules or geographic distance. The number one reason seniors end up alone is something far more uncomfortable to confront. And nobody tells you because nobody wants to be the one to say it. By the end of this video, you will understand what it is. You will likely recognize it in yourself or in someone you love, and you will know exactly what to do about it, if you have the courage. Most people our age would rather stay comfortable than hear difficult truths. Since you are still watching, I suspect you are different. Here it is, stated plainly. The number one reason seniors end up alone is that they have become exhausting to be around. Not physically, exhausting, emotionally exhausting, conversationally exhausting, energetically exhausting. Your children love you. But after an hour in your presence, they feel drained. They leave visits feeling heavier than when they arrived. And so, without consciously deciding to, they begin spacing out those visits. They keep calls brief. They find reasons to be busy. They are not abandoning you. They are protecting their energy from someone who has become, without realizing it, a drain on everyone nearby. This is brutal to hear. I know. When I first understood this about myself, I resisted it for months. I made excuses. I blamed my children's busy lives, their self-absorption, the state of the modern world. Anything to avoid the recognition that I had become someone people endured rather than enjoyed. But avoidance does not solve problems. It prolongs them. And I wanted my family back more than I wanted to protect my ego. Let me describe the specific behaviors that push people away. As I list them, I want you to listen honestly, not defensively, honestly. The first behavior is chronic complaining. You may not realize how much of your conversation has become a recitation of grievances, your health problems, the rudeness of the person at the pharmacy, the weather, the news, the way things used to be better, the disappointments, large and small, that fill your days. Each complaint feels justified. Each one, in isolation, seems like normal conversation, sharing your life, expressing your feelings. But your family experiences the accumulation. To them, every interaction has become a download of negativity they are expected to absorb. They ask how you are doing. You tell them about your arthritis, your insomnia, the neighbor whose dog barks too early. They mention something happening in their lives. You pivot back to your concerns, your frustrations, your catalogue of things that are wrong. After enough of these conversations, they stop asking how you are doing. They stop calling at all. I started tracking my own conversations. For 1 week, I noted every time I complained, versus every time I expressed curiosity, gratitude, or interest in someone else. The ratio horrified me. I had become a vessel of negativity without noticing the transformation. The second behavior is relentless advice giving. You have lived a long time. You have learned things. You have wisdom to offer. And you share it constantly, whether or not anyone has asked. Your daughter mentions a problem at work. Before she has finished speaking, you are telling her what she should do. Your son describes a parenting challenge. You explain how you handled things when he was young, with the clear implication that your way was correct. You believe you are helping. You believe your experience has value. And it does, but only when it is wanted. Unsolicited advice does not feel like help to the recipient. It feels like criticism. It communicates that you do not trust their judgment, that you believe they cannot handle their own lives, that your role is to correct and direct, rather than to listen and support. Your adult children have spent decades establishing their independence from you. When you offer constant advice, you are trying to reclaim authority they thought they had earned. They may not articulate this, they may not even consciously understand it, but they feel it, and they withdraw. I had to learn to ask a simple question before offering any opinion. Do you want my thoughts on this, or do you just need me to listen? The question itself communicates respect, and I discovered that most of the time, they just needed me to listen. The third behavior is living in the past. Your stories matter. Your memories are precious. The experiences that shaped you deserve to be honored. But if every conversation becomes a journey backward, if you cannot discuss the present without detours through 1987, if every topic reminds you of something that happened 40 years ago, if your grandchildren have heard the same anecdotes dozens of times, you have become a museum rather than a living person. Your family exists in the present. Their lives are happening now. When you constantly redirect conversation to the past, you are communicating that you find their present less interesting than your memories. You are making them audience members to a show they have seen too many times. I love my memories, but I have learned to ration them, one story per visit, and only if it genuinely connects to what we are discussing, not as a hijacking of the conversation. The fourth behavior is the most insidious because it disguises itself as love. It is guilt induction. You mention how long it has been since they visited. You sigh about eating alone. You reference how much you sacrificed for them, how little you ask in return, how your own parents would never have tolerated such neglect. You may not say these things directly. Perhaps you just let silence stretch after they mention being busy. Perhaps you describe your empty weekend in a tone designed to provoke guilt. Perhaps you compare their attentiveness unfavorably to a friend's children. These tactics work in the short term. Guilt does motivate visits, but it poisons them. Your family arrives already resentful, already counting the minutes until they can leave, already dreading the next interaction. Guilt-induced contact is not connection. It is obligation. And obligation, sustained long enough, curdles into avoidance. I had to ask myself a painful question. Do I want my children to visit because they want to, or because they feel they have to? Once I asked it honestly, I knew the answer I wanted, and I knew that every guilt-inducing comment pushed me further from that goal. The fifth behavior is resistance to their actual lives. Your children have made choices you would not have made. They parent differently than you did. They hold political views that baffle you. They have habits, relationships, and priorities that do not match your values, and you let them know, regularly, through comments, questions, facial expressions, and silences that communicate disapproval as loudly as words. You believe you are expressing concern. You believe that love includes honesty about disagreement. But your adult children are not seeking your approval. They made their choices. Those choices are not going to change because you express disapproval for the 100th time. What changes is their willingness to be around someone who makes them feel judged. I had to accept that my children's lives are their own, not extensions of mine, not opportunities for me to correct course, their own. My approval is irrelevant to their choices, but my acceptance is essential to our relationship. Now, I have described 5 behaviors. You may recognize all of them, you may recognize none. But if you find yourself increasingly alone, I want you to consider the possibility that you have been blind to something your family has been too polite or too afraid to name. The question is what to do with this recognition. The first step is the hardest. Accept responsibility without drowning in shame. Yes, you may have contributed to your isolation. No, that does not make you a bad person. It makes you a human who developed patterns that stopped serving you. Patterns can be changed. The second step is to become genuinely curious about others, not performatively curious, genuinely interested. Ask questions about their lives and actually listen to the answers. Follow up on things they mentioned last time. Remember details. Show that their existence matters to you beyond what they can provide. The third step is to develop a life interesting enough to share. If every conversation is about your ailments and complaints, perhaps the problem is not just your conversation. It is your life. Find something that engages you. Learn something. Create something. Have experiences you actually want to discuss. The fourth step is to practice gratitude visibly and specifically, not as a manipulation, as a genuine discipline. Thank your family for specific things. Express appreciation without attaching it to guilt about what they have not done. Let them feel that being around you leaves them feeling valued rather than inadequate. The fifth step is to release the relationship you think you deserve and accept the relationship that is actually possible. Your fantasy of the attentive, constantly available adult child may never materialize. The real relationship, with its limitations, its imperfections, its actual human beings, is still worth having. Stop punishing the real for failing to be the ideal. I will tell you what happened when I made these changes. It was not immediate. Trust, once damaged, rebuilds slowly. My children were skeptical at first, waiting for the familiar patterns to reassert themselves. But over months, the calls grew longer. The visits grew less tense. My granddaughter started asking to come over rather than being brought reluctantly. My son called just to talk, not because he had to. I did not get back the relationship I had when they were young. That relationship is gone. It was supposed to go. What I got was something different. An adult relationship between separate people who genuinely enjoy each other's company. That is what is possible. Not a return to the past. Something new. Something that requires you to become someone worth spending time with. This video will make some people angry. They will say I am blaming seniors for their children's neglect. They will say I am letting ungrateful children off the hook. Perhaps some situations are truly one-sided. Perhaps some adult children are genuinely selfish and would neglect the most delightful parent imaginable. But for most of us, honesty requires admitting that we are half of every relationship we are in, and the half we control is the only half we can change. If you are willing to look honestly at yourself, if you would rather hear difficult truths than comfortable lies, then you are exactly who this community is for. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. They will resist it initially. Truth usually meets resistance. But it also, eventually, sets people free. Return here. There is more we need to discuss about building a life worth living and relationships worth having in these years that remain. Until next time, stay vital.